My name is Kyle Jarnagin. I'm an interpreting student at the University of South Florida. The whole point of an interpreting student is to study to become an interpreter. People who provide open access to languages for foreign people. What I'm focusing in is interpreting for the deaf. One of the graduation requirements to graduate with honors is you have to complete some form of a thesis. We came up with an idea about bridging the gap between the deaf community and the hearing community.
In America, you have a lot of cultures here from different countries, but deaf culture is American. It's just separate from the mainstream population.
Deaf culture arose from being excluded from this hearing culture, from the mainstream, and being able to share these experiences with other deaf people.
We wanted to teach hearing people about deaf people more so, about how to communicate with them more effectively, about how it's not scary.
We came up with our breakdown of what we're going to do. Are we going to do interviews? Are we going to record people? Are we going to do surveys? Rachel is focusing more on the deaf perspective, so she did more deaf interviews than I did. And I'm focusing more on the hearing ignorance, hearing perspective, so I did all the hearing interviews. I just went out, met random people at USF in the Tampa Bay area, Clearwater, Brandon, around there, St. Pete, and just met some random people, asked if they'd be willing to do an interview really quick, if I could ask them a few questions about their knowledge on deaf people. Everyone was pretty willing, it was completely anonymous, everything was good, I got a lot of sincere answers. I got a few people who were just trying to waste time, but always happens. And after we finished all that, currently right now we're both writing our end product for our thesis. I have a few questions that's based on this whole idea. I'm trying to figure out a more hearing perspective in relation to the deaf perspective. So there's a few questions here. I'm just going to ask them and I'm going to record them on here. Is that all right?
That's quite all right.
Okay. So the first question, do you know any deaf or hard of hearing individuals yourself?
Not personally. I have met a few through my work though.
Oh? Where do you work that you run into so many deaf people?
I actually work in a movie theater, which is interesting. We have a lot of assistive devices. We have capture glasses, hearing devices, things like that. Yeah, it depends on how deaf they are. There are some that can vocalize for themselves, and they're easier to communicate with, in my opinion, just because I don't know ASL. I don't think being deaf is something that should be a challenge for your children, because it should be easy for you to learn the language, so you can then teach it to them as they grow older.
This was one of the more educated interviews that I conducted. Some of the misconceptions I ran into were pretty hard to believe. A lot of people believed it was illegal for deaf people to drive. In reality, deaf people are usually better drivers than hearing people, because they'll pay more attention to the road, they'll notice things, while hearing people are chatting, talking, listening to the radio. Everyone seems to think that deafness is genetic. In reality, only about 10% of deaf children are born to deaf parents. But some people, when I asked if they could give me about a percent, they'd say, 90% of deaf kids are born to deaf parents. There's a lot of videos on Facebook of babies, couple months old, getting a cochlear implant and being able to hear for the first time. But a problem with cochlears, especially if they're not started at the right time or if they're not effective, is they don't get meaningful sound. They get a ton of just meaningless sound that's just there. It's been miscommunicated to the hearing population that, it'll fix them. I've seen a lot of misconceptions portrayed in the media through YouTube and even through a few popular TV shows. With YouTube, there's a lot of open access. Anyone can see anything, anyone can upload anything. So you'll have a lot of times you'll have ASL 1 students or ASL 2 students who learn something in class and, I want to get famous, so I'm going to upload a tutorial on how to use ASL. But there's a lot of things that go into ASL, and a big part of it there's these different parameters. Parameters are like hand shapes, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or ABCs, palm orientation, whether your hands are facing out, inwards, up, down, sideways, and then movement and your location. Like if you sign something, for example, if you sign something on the face, you could sign right here, or here, or here, and those are 3 different signs. Those are dry, summer, and ugly. Everything else is the same, just where it is completely changes the meaning. And sometimes even just a twist or a repetition can change something from a verb to a noun, like to sit down versus a chair. A lot of people will teach signs that are wrong, and just unintentionally, they won't know any better. They could mean to sign work, but if their palm orientation's wrong, they could sign rough sex. Or to make something, if they sign it too wrong, it becomes a regional sign for make out. One that's really popular would be hungry. It's just, it's just once, oh, I'm hungry. And the facial expression usually gives it away. But hungry, if you repeat it up and down, it's very similar to horny. So you can want to sign something like, I'm hungry, I would like breakfast. I'm hungry, I want breakfast, right? But some people tend to sign, I'm horny, I want bitches. Beyond the whole YouTube scenario, one of the things that I've seen, I believe the show was Supernatural. The way that they portrayed the deaf character, I personally did not agree with, and several deaf people I know also did not agree with it. I believe they had it so that she was completely able to lip read anything with no effort.
Do you know anything about what happened with Arthur last night?
Sorry, I wasn't working last night.
Oh,
another portrayal that I wasn't too big a fan of had to do, it was in the British drama, Doctor Who. They had an episode where they featured a deaf woman, a strong character. It was great. She was a strong character. She was very important to the story. But the reason she was important to the story was because she was able to lip read so well. Because she could lip read some ghosts. No problem there. She had an interpreter in the show, which was also pretty impressive. But one part of the show, they had it so that she was listening to the ground to feel the vibrations of a ghost walking behind her so that she could see in her mind, in almost like a daredevil kind of idea, there was someone behind her. And I'm just like, what? That's not how deaf people work. Those are just a few minor little things, but the problem is those little things build up. Because you may not think about it actively, but, passively you'll just be like, oh, hey, I guess that's how deaf people work. Or, hey, I guess all of them can read lips. People that are like you, me, anyone on the street, they might have this whole idea, oh, hey, I'm normal, I'm fine. And they get this whole kind of xenophobic tendency towards this just kind of fear towards people who are disabled, who are deaf, who are blind, anything, where they just feel uncomfortable with them.
I've heard stories of deaf people being beaten by cops for not being able to communicate back just because they didn't realize that they were even deaf. I also came across stories of deaf people dying from cancer because they never even found out that they had cancer, even though they went to the doctor 6 times while they had it. One of my deaf friends had to have surgery, and she went to the hospital, and they refused to give her an interpreter. Now, that's illegal, but it happens all the time. A
few minor things that should be done to start improving relations would be just getting informed. Vocalized languages a lot of them are very implicit, like English or Japanese is extremely implicit, but ASL is so explicit, it'll explain so much more, you'll know so much, and you'll learn it in half the time that it would take to say it.
In one-way conversations, don't wanna call you in the nighttime, don't wanna give you all my pieces, don't wanna hand you all my trouble, don't wanna give you all my demons. You'll have to watch me struggle from several rooms away.